The following program is sponsored by Shoppers Home Healthcare at www.shoppershomehealthcare.ca.
Ordinary people leading ordinary lives, achieving the extraordinary. That is what this show is all about. Join us now for Champions of Challenge.
On Champions of Challenge, we meet the rare and remarkable participants in the Canadian Transplant Games. The requirement to compete in the Canadian Transplant Games was that each competitor had to have been a transplant recipient.
Shaylin received her new heart at the age of 2.
Like running.
There was a wide variety of ages that came from across Canada, the United States, and even Mexico to compete in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. They weren't considered elite athletes by certain standards. However, there was the exception of Howard Dell.
Hi, I'm Howard Dell. Most people recognize me from television, the Olympics, or pro football, especially here in Canada. But today I wanted to talk to you about something you don't know, which is that I'm a liver transplant recipient.
So when we think about the Transplant Games, it's for most of us, it's another Games, it's like the Olympics, it comes and goes. But for the people taking part in it, it's people who've had a tough battle. And for them, it's a celebration of life, and more than anything else for some, it's a celebration of being alive.
In 2006, I was diagnosed with 2 of the rarest liver diseases that there are, PSC and Wilson's disease. I was at end-stage liver disease, and I had roughly 3-4 months to live. So at that point in time, it's pretty much of a shock. I've been a professional athlete, an Olympic athlete all my life, and the doctors told me that that was coming to an end.
And as transplant doctors, when we see our patients the first time, we see them at the worst time of their life. We see them at a time when they've been told they're going to die, and for most of them, they've given up. And we give them a small glimmer of hope that maybe there's a life ahead, maybe there's the chance of an organ transplant.
Roughly October 2005, I started to feel quite sick. And when I went for testing, it was determined through an ultrasound that about 75% of my liver was cirrhosed, which I was amazed and couldn't believe. And because I was living a healthy lifestyle, it was something that wasn't expected at all. What it ended up becoming was a rare blood clotting disorder called Budd-Chiari syndrome, which causes blood clots in the liver and eventually destroys the liver.
And most of the people here who've had transplants before will tell you, sitting on the waiting list, waiting for that phone to ring, seeing your body getting sicker and sicker, wondering if you're going to be the one who doesn't make it. And then it gets harder. You get the call, you go in, you get your transplant. Sometimes it works well, and sometimes it's a long, difficult journey to get back to health.
Tell us what happened there that you needed a second transplant.
Well, with the first transplant, it was a non-compatible transplant. I was so sick at that time. I was healthy enough to get a transplant, but very close to death. And so what happens in that situation is people are put on the national list, and whatever liver comes up that fits, and even if it's not compatible blood type-wise, which this one wasn't, that's what I received. It was to keep me alive. And then when I had that transplant, after about 3 days, I ended up destroying a portion of that liver through a blood clot. And then what happened from there was they just got me healthy enough to survive another transplant, and that one was a keeper. That was a proper match.
Sign your healthcare card so that if something were to happen, I mean, God forbid, but if something were to happen, that you could save lives. And it does.
These miracles are happening, and people are filling those running shoes that would never have done so before unless somebody was aware and signed the donor card. It's something that's just so necessary to talk to your family about. Sign your card.
I received a double lung transplant, and I got a second chance at life. And I'm one of the lucky ones, I know that.
Certainly over the last number of years, lung transplant has come a long way.
I was one of the lucky ones that got the organ and was successfully operated on. But it's just interesting, that I have female lungs now. The things I can enjoy, some things Not as much as before, because you're never the same person, never will be, but golfing is the perfect sport for me. It's the perfect slow pace, full body exercise, the camaraderie, everything about golf is just the best sport for me. There's so much to life that you can still enjoy.
Common conditions such as emphysema, cystic fibrosis, pulmonary hypertension can now be successfully treated with lung transplant.
Hello everyone, my name is Christy Thackeray and these are my daughters, Shaylin and Michaela. Shaylin and I are both heart transplant recipients. I am 16 years post-transplant and Shaylin is 8 years. We still have to take medication because our bodies could reject our transplanted organ. We also require monthly blood work to monitor our rejection levels. Too much medication can have damaging effects on the kidneys, and too little could mean that we reject our new heart. Shaylin and I were both diagnosed with a heart disease called restrictive cardiomyopathy. I found out that I needed a transplant in 1995 at the age of 13. My heart donor was female and died the day before her 23rd birthday. May 26th is my heart donor's birthday and the day I celebrate my transplant anniversary. 5 years later, in 2001, I gave birth to 2 beautiful twin girls. The girls were premature but otherwise healthy. 2 years later, doctors diagnosed Shaylin with restrictive cardiomyopathy. Shaylin received her new heart at the age of 2. We are so blessed. Shaylin and I have both been given a gift of life. This precious gift has allowed me and my daughter to experience the most wonderful moments of our lives. Because of organ donation, I am able to be a mom, a wife, a sister, a daughter, and a friend. I'm able to work full-time and I recently celebrated my 30th birthday. I'm also in school with the goal of pursuing a social work degree.
Look at our patients. They get a heart transplant, they go from death's doorstep, they go from not being able to brush their teeth in the morning to be able to compete in these international transplant games. So I think this is an absolutely amazing indication of what can be done with transplantation.
For all of you who don't know, my name's Scott Ouellette. I'm a heart transplant recipient. We're going to have Lauren, who donated a kidney out of the kindness of her heart, to present the medals to all the winners. 18 to 29 age group. Low gross is Brandon Vanderswag.
Yeah, my name is Brent Duick, and I received a kidney from my father back in 2002. So on September 5th of this year will be 10 years, so that's officially my 10-year kidniversary, as we call it in my house. Yeah, pretty neat. My dad went under the knife for me. Not a guy who was very excited about surgery, although who is. And he decided to give me the gift of life. It's a pretty special gift. When we had the games in Edmonton in '06, my dad actually got to golf with me. So it was a little father and son transplant games golf match. It was pretty special, a lot of fun. Really, yeah, I mean, this event's so great. It just shows so much of what transplant can do. So sign your donor cards because it does some amazing things. I've met some amazing people and I've made amazing friends here at the games. And it's all thanks to organ transplantation. It's the gift of life. Don't take your organs to heaven. Heaven knows we need them here.
15 years ago in February was is when I had a kidney transplant for my brother. And it turned out to be one of the best gifts he could give me. I think back to other Christmas presents, but no, it truly was a good gift.
And you've been totally healthy with it, and
yeah. I've gone on, once I became a transplant recipient with good health, I started to see what I could do to give back to the community, raise awareness in Canada, World Games. I've done a few mountain expeditions, and it's really just getting to know all the other recipients and to see how we can unite to raise awareness.
And Dave, you've participated in the World Games. Tell us what you've done there, and have you won any medals? And
yeah, a few.
Awesome.
I usually do track and field when I'm competing, and take a specialty sport on, something I haven't tried. I've done rowing and kayaking. I've won the odd gold medal, silver medal. I've had a lot of success, met a lot of great people with many stories to share. It's perfect.
And let's talk about your mountain climbing. You've mountain climbed. Tell us about that. I mean, that's unbelievable. I'm totally amazed by that. Tell us about that.
Well, it started out in 2004. A transplant recipient who had a heart had just finished climbing Mount Blanc in France, and he asked if I wanted to join him and climb over a 6,000 meter peak in Bolivia. And I said, definitely, this would be something fun. Let's go do it. I hadn't mountain climbed before, but it seemed like a great tool to raise awareness and just another way to celebrate being healthy with a transplant. And we managed to set a couple records while we were climbing. Sylvain went over 6,100 meters, the highest ever for a heart transplant. And I went 6,500, which is still the record for any transplant for altitude.
I was 50 years old when I was able to give a kidney to my partner, Brian McGuire, who I saw go downhill over the last few years prior to the second transplant. He's a very active person again today and very happy, and I'm the one who's blessed to have been able to give the gift of life to him.
In kidneys, we have the kidney and pancreas, we have the beauty of using live donors. I'm the director of the Living Donor Program, and for me it's one of the most exciting jobs. Seeing patients who are completely healthy and step forward just to donate their organs and try to help their beloved person or their friends or any of their relatives. So it's amazing see that the altruism exists and see that they go through a lot of process in order to donate the organ. But when they decide to donate, they go through the process and to give the life back to the person they love.
Teresa, tell us a little bit about how you're involved with the Transplant Games and the Transplant Association.
Well, first and foremost, I'm a nurse at the Foothills Hospital. I work with the live kidney donors, but I'm also very involved in transplant itself. And there's many, many people waiting on a list, many people dying on the list waiting for transplant. So our goal is to increase those numbers and get people transplanted. So someone who has a loved one that's requiring a kidney transplant, come forward to me and we work them up to see if they're healthy enough to be a donor. We also do anonymous donation now, and we do what we call paired exchange. Paired exchange is where two people that know each other aren't a match in whichever way, whether it's a blood type match or a cross-match match, and we can put them into the Canadian registry across Canada, and that has helped more than hundreds and hundreds of people get a transplant that would have not had someone that was a match for them. So it's called the Living Donor Paired Exchange Program.
I am so happy to be at the Canadian Transplant Games because for me it's like therapy. There is nothing better than being around people who have been through the experience that you have been through. Especially, you know, it's interesting too. Kidneys sort of hang out with kidneys, and livers hang out with livers, and it's so soothing. I mean, how many times do you ever get to sit with your doctor in a room for an hour or two and just ask them the million questions you have? You never really do, but when you run across fellow transplanters, you can talk to them about medication, how they're feeling, what they do, and how they make it through everyday life and their everyday routine. And for myself, you know, I've got my own program, and I just love spreading the word because I really enjoy trying to motivate others once they receive their organ transplant.
My name is Leanne Tibbles. I'm the acting director of the Ultra Transplant Program in Southern Alberta. These games highlight how well transplant patients do and what their quality of life is after transplantation. And I'd like to thank the Canadian Transplant Association for being the patient advocate and for organizing these games.
The Games ran from July 16th to the 22nd, 2012. most important events during the Canadian Transplant Games was the Donor Walk, in honor of the donors and the donor families.
All the donors and the donor families. We couldn't be here without you, and it means a whole lot to all of us who are recipients. And we can't even find the words to thank you enough. So good luck, you guys. Have fun. It's a lovely 3K walk along the river, and enjoy yourselves.
Hi, I'm Heather from Cranbrook, BC, and I'm here with my sister,
Carol from Calgary, Alberta.
And we're here in Calgary to celebrate the Canadian Transplant Games. We've been participating in a lot of activities, and it's been a great day and lots of good hospitality here in Calgary.
We have a bit of a family history, as our mother was a kidney dialysis patient back in the early 70s. So they've learned a lot from when she was diagnosed, and there's great things we can expect from kidney transplants now.
So I just had my transplant a year ago. It was May of 2011 in Vancouver, BC, and it was a really great opportunity for me. I received my kidney through a cadaver, so that meant somebody had to have passed away, and that family was gracious enough to sign up to be an organ donor. So that's why I'm here today celebrating.
Thank you so much. You have no idea what heroes you are to all of us, to our families, to our friends, to our colleagues, because of your decision to register your wishes.
And Carol had her transplant in Calgary.
I had my transplant in Calgary in 2002, so it's been 10 years plus. I'm doing great, and I'll forever be honoring my donor and the donor families here today. They're just fantastic people, and anyone who has received an organ or tissue transplant has a story to tell, and every story is different. I think this is true of donors and donor families too. One thing is for sure, organ donation works and is changing lives. There's nothing more precious than the gift of life. I think I speak from all recipients and their families when I say we will never forget the gift of life that you have given us, and that you will always be remembered in our and our family hearts forever.
Yay, donors!
Yay, donors! Isn't that right? We love you, donor families. That's from BC Heart.
Julaine Hamer is a mother of a donor. She went on to become a heart recipient herself in 2006.
And our gold place finisher in the 60 to 69 is Julaine Hamer.
My story really begins with my son, who was a donor in 1987, 25 years ago, when he was in an accident. The accident was on the Friday, and he lived until the following Monday morning. He was resuscitated, but he was brain dead. So we had to decide what we were going to do about his organs and tissues. We knew that he wanted to be a donor because he had given out donor cards to his fellow hockey players and teammates of opposition teams, members, telling them that they needed to sign their donor card. They were young, they were often on the road, and they were athletes, so they had their bodies were in good shape. We were fortunate that he had done this because when we were questioned about whether or not we wanted to donate his organs, there was no question because he had answered that. The last conversation he had with his father was asking him to sign his donor card. He died in 1987. I was diagnosed with cardiomyopathy in 1992. When Wade died, one day we were looking at the papers, and in one paper there was a story about Wade, and in another paper there was a story about a man who had received a heart transplant. And because they were published on the same day, we felt that there was a very good chance that the fellow in the news article was Wade's recipient for his heart. I wrote him a letter just telling him that about Wade a little bit, and we were in touch. He responded, and he and his wife met me for a lunch one day. which was, I found to be very encouraging and heartfelt on their part. They did not have to do that. And ever since then, they have been, and we have been sending Christmas cards to each other almost every Christmas. Recently, however, we have been communicating by telephone, and it's just nice to hear how he's doing. It's been 25 years since his transplant, and it really does give me encouragement as to how life can go on after a transplant, and I'm very thankful for that. I want to say again that I'm very, very grateful to my donor family for consenting to allow their family member to give their organs and tissues, and it's my life. I wouldn't be here without that.
Margot Plotsky is the mother of a heart recipient and a grandmother of a heart recipient.
I just like to say, you know, we as a family, we've grown much closer together, I think, and we've learned a lot of things throughout this, the ups and downs and the goods and the bads. But in the end, it's really good. But we are, you know, my husband and I are so proud of Christy for what she's accomplished after, like, since her transplant, and what she's going to teach Shaylin to accomplish. And, you know, we're so proud of those 2 little grandchildren. You know, it's something that we look back, we would never change. We've learned a lot.
And then, of course, the night of the transplant, I remember, I'll never forget, I was able to walk into the operating room, and I sat on the table, and I kept saying to my mom, I'm gonna make this, I'm gonna make it through, I'm gonna make it through, right? I'm gonna wake up, right? And she's like, yes, you're gonna wake up. And I'm like, and then I remember, you know, just laying down, and I kept saying, you know, tell Dad I love him, tell Billy I love him, and tell my dog Tinker I love him. And then, yeah, 8 hours later, I don't remember waking up, but.
And I think, and I hope, if I have to say anything, if a transplantee takes anything, if I have to say anything, that's the one thing I would say, is you have to think, don't worry about what's out of your control. That, you know, whether you're young or you're older, you get better and you can move forward. You're giving that second chance. And usually people don't want to waste that second chance.
For Christy and Shaylin, we have 2 angels up above there watching down on us. And, you know, you couldn't ask for anything more than that. Even though some family is suffering over that, you know, if we could, you know, it's just a gift of life. And there's those 2 angels up there.
I just want to add, I wouldn't change anything, because I don't think if I wouldn't have ever been sick in my life, I would be someone completely different. And I don't think I would like that person. I don't. You know, people say I'm too sensitive or I'm this, that, but all the things I am are because of what I've been through. And I think that makes me a better mom and a better wife.
Makes you who you are, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I know there was a reason, and I think I've figured out the reason. The people that we have met on this journey, you would never meet them if it hadn't unfolded this way.
Please sign your donor card.
My message is simply, if you're not an organ donor, if you haven't signed up to be an organ donor, please consider it. And my catch line to you is, if you are in a position to help somebody, why wouldn't you?
Organ donation is human compassion and love for humanity at its finest. It is the most precious and selfless gift a person can give.
But most importantly, doesn't matter how well you do in the games, you're already a winner. You've come through the other end and you've got a life back.
Do it. Just get out there, have fun, and live life.
For more information, visit www.organ-donation-works.org.